The girl moved through the crowded hall with quiet steps, careful not to draw attention. Her hair fell gently over her shoulders, and she adjusted the strap of her bag as she walked, blending into the sea of students who laughed, talked, and shared stories. She had always been like this, an invisible observer in a world full of noise and bright personalities. People barely noticed her unless they needed something, or if she happened to sit in their way. She never complained, though. She had learned long ago that trying to stand out often led to disappointment. At lunch, she chose a corner table, far from the chatter and boisterous conversations. Some students threw glances her way, but no one came to sit with her. She didn't mind. She opened her notebook and began to sketch quietly, her pencil moving almost like it had a life of its own. Drawing was her refuge, a place where she could create worlds that were impossible to ignore, even if only she could see them. She imagined scenes filled with colors and emotions that she didn't feel brave enough to express in real life. Each line she drew was a whisper of her thoughts, a reflection of the dreams she kept hidden from everyone else. Her teachers often praised her for being polite and diligent, but they never really knew her. They handed out worksheets, gave instructions, and expected her to follow along silently. She did exactly that, never asking questions in class, never raising her hand. The other students whispered about who would get the next award, who would perform in the talent show, who would be recognized. They rarely considered her. She could have been invisible for years and no one would have noticed. At home, the situation was not much different. Her parents loved her, of course, but they were busy with work and responsibilities, and they didn't always understand her quiet world. Her room was her sanctuary. Posters of artists, writers, and musicians filled the walls. Her desk was cluttered with notebooks, paints, and musical instruments she had collected over time. It was chaotic, but it was hers, and in this space she could be herself. She could play a song softly on the piano without anyone telling her to stop. She could paint with colors that made no sense to anyone else. In this room she was free. Despite being unnoticed, she had a few moments of joy. Sometimes she would catch the eye of a classmate who shared her interest in music or art. They would exchange small smiles or nods, brief connections that felt significant to her, but those moments were rare, and the rest of the time she was content to observe and listen. She had learned to appreciate the small details others overlooked, the way sunlight hit the classroom windows in the morning, the way the wind sounded as it rushed through the trees, the subtle expressions on people's faces when they laughed or frowned. These details made life feel alive to her, even when she was alone. Her quietness was often mistaken for weakness. Some students would tease those who seemed shy, labeling them as boring or uninteresting. She had been the target of a few of these jabs, and she had learned to ignore them. There was power in silence, she thought, even if no one else saw it. She listened more than she spoke, and in her listening, she learned more than anyone realized. She knew the stories behind people's laughter, the struggles behind their smiles, the hopes they hid from everyone else. Despite her quiet nature, she had dreams that burned brightly inside her. She longed to perform, to share her art, to let her music speak the words she couldn't say. But the fear of ridicule had kept her silent for so long that it had become a habit. She watched her classmates prepare for school events, practicing lines, rehearsing songs, and she imagined herself doing the same. The thought made her heart race, but every time she tried to imagine stepping forward, she felt an invisible wall stop her. It was easier to stay in the background, to be unnoticed, to keep her talents to herself. Even though she kept her dreams hidden, she never gave up on them. Every afternoon after school, she would retreat to her room and practice her piano, strum her guitar, or hum melodies that no one would hear. She poured her soul into these private sessions, letting the music flow through her fingers and her voice. She felt a sense of accomplishment in these moments, even if no one else did. The girl knew that someday, somehow, the world would notice her. She didn't know when or how, but she held on to the hope that her time would come. Her friends at school were mostly imaginary, friends she created in her mind while reading books or watching videos. They were characters who encouraged her, who applauded her, who believed in her when no one else did. Sometimes she would write letters to these friends, explaining her thoughts, her worries, and her dreams. Writing was another way for her to express herself, a way to put words to feelings that felt too big to speak out loud. On certain days, she would feel the sting of loneliness more than usual. She would see groups of students laughing together and wonder why she couldn't be a part of that. She wondered if there was something wrong with her, if she was destined to always be on the sidelines. But then she would pick up her pencil or sit at the piano and the loneliness would fade, replaced by the joy of creating. She realized that being ignored didn't mean she was insignificant. Her worth wasn't measured by who noticed her in a crowded hall, but by what she could create and share with the world when the time was right. She had a few people who were kind to her, teachers who offered a smile or a word of encouragement, a classmate who shared a piece of chocolate or a small joke. These small gestures mattered more to her than anyone could know. They reminded her that the world wasn't entirely cold and indifferent, that there were moments of warmth and connection, even if they were fleeting. Even though the girl was quiet, she observed everything. She noticed when someone was sad, when someone tried too hard to fit in, when someone was struggling to hide their fear. She had a way of understanding people without needing to speak, a way of sensing their emotions and seeing the truth behind their actions. This understanding gave her a quiet strength, a confidence that was invisible to others but powerful within herself. As the days passed, she continued to move through her life unnoticed, but her dreams grew stronger. She began to imagine herself standing on a stage, playing her music while people listened in awe. She pictured the joy in their faces, the surprise in their eyes. She imagined the applause, the recognition, the moment when she would no longer be ignored. These daydreams were her fuel, keeping her motivated even when the world seemed indifferent. Sometimes late at night she would sit by her window and watch the stars. She would think about all the people in the world, all the stories that went unnoticed, and she would remind herself that everyone had a moment to shine. Her moment might not come today or tomorrow, but she believed it would come. She believed that her quiet persistence, her dedication to her art, and her inner strength would eventually be recognized. And so, she continued. She walked through crowded halls with quiet steps, ate her lunch alone but content, practiced her art in secret, and held on to her dreams. She was the girl everyone ignored, but she was not powerless. Her world was rich with imagination, creativity, and hope. She had not yet taken her place in the spotlight, but she was preparing for it in the only way she knew how, patiently, diligently, and with a heart full of quiet determination. The girl's story was just beginning, and though no one could see it yet, something extraordinary was quietly taking shape within her. She was ready for the moment when she would no longer be invisible, ready for the night when the world would finally notice her. The announcement came on a bright Monday morning. A big talent showcase would be held in a few weeks. Everyone at school was buzzing with excitement. Posters went up in the hallways, reminding students to sign up and prepare their acts. It was the event of the season, and for most it was a chance to show off skills, charm the crowd, or simply bask in attention. The girl, sitting quietly at her desk, heard the news with a mix of curiosity and nervousness. She had always dreamed of performing, but the thought of stepping in front of so many people filled her with fear. Throughout the day, her classmates talked excitedly about what they would do. Some were rehearsing songs they had practiced for months. Others planned dances, magic tricks, or comedic skits. The girl listened silently, noting their ideas, the confidence in their voices, the way they laughed and encouraged each other. She felt a stirring inside her, a longing she could no longer ignore. Maybe this was her chance, her moment to finally step out of the shadows, but fear still held her back, whispering that she would fail, that people would laugh, that she would be humiliated. After school, she went to her quiet corner in the library. She opened her notebook and wrote down thoughts she had never shared. She wrote about the music she loved, the songs she had been practicing in her room, the melodies that had been her secret companions for years. As she wrote, a sense of determination grew inside her. If she didn't try, she would always wonder what might have been. The thought of regret was stronger than her fear. For the first time, she considered stepping forward, even if it was just a small step. That evening, she went home and locked herself in her room. She pulled out her guitar, which had been gathering dust in the corner, and began to play. Her fingers moved carefully at first, remembering notes she had not touched in months. The sound filled the room, small at first, then growing stronger as her confidence grew. She sang softly, her voice trembling, but there was emotion, a truth in the sound that was impossible to ignore. For hours she practiced, pouring all her energy into the music. She imagined herself on stage, playing for a crowd, feeling the applause, and she allowed herself to believe it could happen. Days passed, and the girl continued to practice in secret. She carefully prepared her performance, choosing a song that reflected her emotions, her dreams, her story. She rehearsed every note, every movement until it felt natural. She even created small gestures and expressions to accompany her music, ways to convey her feelings without speaking. It was exhausting, but she felt alive in a way she had never experienced before. The idea of performing, once terrifying, began to feel like a promise, a challenge she was determined to face. Meanwhile, at school, her absence from the conversations about the showcase was noted. Some students whispered, wondering why she hadn't signed up. Others assumed she would not participate, that she lacked the talent or courage to step forward. They forgot about her just as they had for years. But she paid them no mind. She knew that her preparation was private, that her effort was her own, and that the true reward would not be the attention but the fulfillment of finally taking a step she had dreamed about for so long. Her parents noticed a change in her behavior. She seemed quieter yet more focused, spending long hours in her room. When they asked, she simply smiled and nodded, not revealing the depth of her preparations. She didn't need approval or encouragement. She needed space to grow. She knew the night of the showcase would come, and when it did, she wanted to be ready. She was not practicing for recognition or praise, but for herself, for the opportunity to finally express what had been silent for so long. As the day of the talent showcase approached, her nerves grew stronger. She would wake in the middle of the night imagining the crowd, imagining faces looking at her, some with curiosity, some with doubt. She felt a mix of excitement and fear. The fear was powerful, almost enough to make her retreat back into her quiet world. But every time it appeared, she reminded herself of the hours she had spent practicing, the music she had created, the courage she had gathered. She could not let fear win now. On the morning of the showcase, she prepared carefully. She wore an outfit that made her feel comfortable, confident, and ready. She brought her guitar and her notebook with the lyrics she had written. Each item was a piece of herself, a token of all the effort she had put in. She took deep breaths, trying to calm her racing heart, and whispered to herself that she could do this. She was ready, even if no one else believed it. When she arrived at the venue, the room was buzzing with activity. Students rushed backstage, teachers checked equipment, and parents found seats in the audience. The energy was electric, filled with anticipation and excitement. Some students glanced at her briefly, wondering if she would actually perform. Most ignored her, confident that she would remain in the background as usual. They underestimated her, just as they had underestimated her for years. Backstage, she found a quiet corner and tuned her guitar carefully. She closed her eyes for a moment and imagined the music flowing through her. Imagined the audience listening. Imagined the moment when she would let her voice and her fingers speak. She felt her fear, but she also felt determination. She had worked too hard and dreamed too long to back down now. This was her moment, and she would not let it slip away. As the first act ended, the girl's name was called. A hush fell over the room as she walked toward the stage. She felt eyes on her, some curious, some skeptical, some indifferent. Her heart pounded, but she held her head high. She stepped onto the stage and stood for a moment, letting the silence settle around her. Then she strummed the first chord. The sound was soft, gentle, and true. It filled the room, a quiet force that drew the audience in. She began to sing, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger with each word. She sang from the heart, telling a story that was hers alone, sharing emotions that had been locked away for years. The audience listened in surprise, their whispers fading as they became captivated by her performance. She moved with the music, her hands on the guitar, her expression reflecting every note, every emotion. The quiet girl who had been ignored for so long was finally seen, finally heard, and finally felt. As the song continued, the energy in the room shifted. Students who had doubted her watched in awe. Teachers who had never truly noticed her leaned forward, and parents smiled with pride. Every chord, every word, every gesture was a testament to her dedication, her courage, and her hidden talent. The performance was not just a song. It was a revelation, a statement that quiet strength could not be ignored forever. By the time she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence. Then slowly the room erupted into applause. People who had never paid attention to her before clapped, cheered, and even whistled in admiration. She felt a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief. She had done it. She had faced her fear, shared her talent, and claimed a moment she had dreamed about for years. She had transformed from the girl everyone ignored into someone impossible to overlook. Backstage, students approached her with newfound respect. They asked about her practice, her inspirations, and how she had prepared. They had underestimated her, and now they were curious, eager to understand the quiet girl who had stolen the show. She smiled, answered politely, and let her music speak for her. She did not need to prove herself with words. Her performance had done that. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. The girl received compliments, praise, and recognition she had never imagined. But more importantly, she felt a change within herself. The fear that had once held her back had diminished, replaced by confidence and self-assurance. She realized that being noticed was not about seeking approval from others, but about embracing her own strength and sharing it with the world. She had done that, and it had been enough. That night she returned home exhausted but exhilarated. She placed her guitar carefully on the stand, took a deep breath, and smiled. She had faced the world, shared her art, and found her voice. She was no longer the girl who blended into the background. She had stepped into the light, and it felt natural, right, and entirely her own. The experience had changed her, not because of the applause or attention, but because she had discovered the power of believing in herself. She had taken the first step toward becoming the person she had always dreamed of being. The night of the talent showcase had arrived, and the venue buzzed with energy. Students, teachers, and families filled the room, eager to see performances, laugh at jokes, cheer for friends, and be entertained. The girl stood backstage, guitar in hand, heart pounding, her palms slightly sweaty. She had rehearsed countless times in her room, imagined this moment hundreds of times, but nothing could completely prepare her for the real thing. The lights, the crowd, the expectation, it was overwhelming yet thrilling. She watched as one act after another performed. Some sang confidently, their voices strong but predictable. Others danced or told jokes, drawing laughter and applause. She noticed the ease with which some moved through the spotlight, the way they held the audience's attention effortlessly. She felt a pang of envy, but it quickly turned into determination. She reminded herself that she had her own story, her own music, her own way of touching hearts. That was her strength. Her turn came sooner than she expected. The announcer called her name, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. Her legs felt heavy as she walked to the stage. Faces blurred in the bright lights. Whispers rippled through the crowd, some expressing curiosity, others doubt. She had always been underestimated, ignored, invisible. And now the moment to change that was here. She took a deep breath, steadied her fingers on the guitar strings, and lifted her gaze to the audience. The first chord she played was soft, almost hesitant, but it carried a weight of sincerity. The room fell into a quiet hush. The audience leaned in, sensing something different. She began to sing, her voice trembling initially but slowly gaining strength. The song was not just music. It was a story of years spent in silence, of moments unseen, of dreams quietly nurtured. Every word, every note conveyed her heart, reaching out to listeners in a way that words alone could never achieve. At first, some students exchanged surprised glances. They had ignored her for so long that they had not expected this. Teachers who had rarely spoken to her leaned forward, curiosity and admiration mixing on their faces. Parents smiled, proud to see a young person expressing herself with such authenticity. Her music was simple yet powerful, a reflection of her life, her struggles, and her quiet strength. With every strum of the guitar and every note sung, the girl drew the audience deeper into her world. As the song progressed, her confidence grew. The nervous tremor in her voice disappeared, replaced by clarity and emotion. She moved with the music, allowing herself to be vulnerable and honest. The stage, once a terrifying place, became her space of freedom. She realized that being on stage was not about seeking approval or attention. It was about sharing a piece of herself, something real and meaningful. The audience was captivated, drawn into her performance without realizing how much they were learning about her through her art. The song reached its crescendo, her voice soaring, her fingers dancing on the guitar strings. Every emotion she had held back, fear, hope, longing, determination, was poured into the performance. She saw eyes widen in surprise, hands covering mouths in awe, some heads nodding in silent approval. She felt the connection she had longed for, the recognition she had imagined, but this time it was genuine and earned, not forced or superficial. The invisible girl had finally become visible, not because of popularity but because of talent, courage, and authenticity. When the final chord rang out, there was a brief, stunned silence. Then slowly applause began, growing louder with each passing second. Cheers and whistles followed. Students who had once ignored her now clapped enthusiastically, some even rising to their feet. Teachers and parents joined in, the room filled with genuine appreciation. She stood on stage, chest heaving, a mixture of relief, joy, and disbelief washing over her. She had faced her fear, embraced her talent, and captivated an audience that had once overlooked her. Backstage, students and teachers approached her with curiosity and admiration. Some asked how long she had practiced. Others complimented her song choice and emotional delivery. Her classmates, who had once whispered about her absence or dismissed her as quiet and unimportant, now looked at her with newfound respect. They were eager to understand how the girl they had ignored had transformed into the star of the night. She answered politely with a quiet smile, letting her performance speak louder than any words could. The rest of the showcase continued, but the memory of her performance lingered. Conversations between students often returned to the girl who had stunned them all. They marveled at her courage, her skill, and the authenticity she had displayed. Many began to see her in a different light, realizing that quietness did not mean lack of talent and invisibility did not mean weakness. The girl had silently rewritten the way they viewed her, leaving an impression that would not fade quickly. As the night ended and the audience began to leave, she felt a sense of calm and fulfillment. She had faced a fear that had haunted her for years, and she had succeeded. It was not just the applause or recognition that mattered, but the knowledge that she had trusted herself enough to step forward. The confidence she had gained could not be measured in words. It was felt deep inside, a seed of self-assurance that would grow with every future endeavor. Walking home that night, she reflected on the experience. She remembered all the moments when she had been ignored, all the times she had watched others succeed while remaining unseen. And yet she realized that those experiences had prepared her for this moment. They had given her patience, resilience, and a quiet determination. The girl who had blended into the background had discovered that her time to shine was not defined by the attention of others, but by her willingness to embrace her own strength and talent. At home, she carefully placed her guitar back in its case and sat quietly for a moment, letting the events of the night settle in. The room was dimly lit, familiar and comforting, yet now it felt different. It was no longer just a space for private practice and secret dreams. It had been a launching point, a place where her potential had begun to reveal itself to the world. She smiled to herself, knowing that this was just the beginning. The stage, the audience, the music, all of it was now a part of her story, a story she would continue to write with courage and authenticity. The girl knew that life would not always be easy. There would be moments of doubt, setbacks, and challenges ahead. But she had learned something invaluable that night, that belief in oneself, even when unrecognized by others, was a powerful force. She had faced fear, embraced vulnerability, and emerged stronger. The applause, the admiration, and the acknowledgement were gifts, but the real triumph lay in her own discovery of her capabilities, her voice, and her courage. In the days that followed, the story of her performance spread quietly through the school. Students who had once overlooked her approached with a new sense of respect. Teachers who had rarely engaged with her offered words of encouragement and recognition. Even strangers who had witnessed the showcase commented on the depth and authenticity of her performance. Yet the girl remained grounded, understanding that the true reward was not the attention but the knowledge that she had dared to step into the light and claim her moment. She continued to practice her music, write her songs, and explore her creativity with renewed passion. The stage no longer seemed intimidating but inviting. The experience had unlocked a new level of confidence and self-awareness, showing her that her voice mattered, that her presence mattered, and that her dreams were worth pursuing. The girl who had been ignored had found her way to the center of attention, not by seeking it, but by embracing her talents, her authenticity, and her courage. Her story, once hidden in quiet corners and private rooms, had begun to unfold in a way that was impossible to ignore. The days after the talent showcase were unlike anything the girl had ever experienced. She walked through the school hallways with a new awareness. People who had never noticed her now paused to offer smiles, words of admiration, or simple nods of acknowledgement. She had expected curiosity, maybe a little attention, but the response was overwhelming in a way she had never imagined. It was strange to feel seen, to realize that her presence mattered in ways it had never before. Some students approached her to ask questions about her music, about how she had learned to play the way she did, about what inspired her songs. Their curiosity was genuine, but it was also tinged with awe. They had underestimated her for years, and now they were trying to understand what they had missed. She answered politely, humbly, careful to show gratitude without arrogance. Inside, though, she felt a quiet pride. This recognition was different from applause or praise. It was acknowledgement that she had worked hard, that she had persevered, and that she had created something meaningful. Teachers who had rarely engaged with her began to notice her in new ways. Some complimented her on her performance. Others asked if she would like to participate in school events or music programs. These interactions, small as they seemed, mattered to her. They were signs that her world had shifted, that the quiet girl in the corner had begun to step into spaces she had previously only imagined. She realized that people respond not only to talent but to courage and authenticity, and her willingness to be vulnerable had opened doors she had never thought possible. Her classmates, too, were different. Some who had ignored her before now sought her company, asking her to join study groups, inviting her to social events, or simply engaging in casual conversation. She accepted some of these gestures but remained cautious, knowing that not all attention came with good intentions. She had learned over the years that recognition could be fleeting, and that genuine connection required understanding and respect. Still, the change in how people treated her was undeniable. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. The girl's confidence grew steadily. She began to participate more in class, offering insights when appropriate and sharing her ideas without fear of judgment. Her voice, once quiet and hesitant, carried weight now. She discovered that the courage to perform had spilled over into other areas of her life, giving her the strength to express herself in ways she had never dared. The experience taught her that the first step was often the hardest, but once taken, it could transform everything. Music became an even greater part of her daily life. She continued to practice diligently, exploring new melodies, experimenting with lyrics, and refining her style. Each note she played was infused with the confidence gained from her performance, a reminder of what she was capable of. Her room, once a private sanctuary, now felt like a studio where dreams could take shape, where talent could grow, and where her voice could be heard without fear. She spent hours composing, learning, and perfecting, knowing that each effort brought her closer to her aspirations. One afternoon, a few classmates invited her to join a small group preparing for an upcoming music event. She hesitated at first, remembering how invisible she had once felt. But the invitation was genuine, filled with respect and encouragement. She accepted, realizing that collaboration could enrich her experience and help her continue growing. Working with others was different from performing alone. It required listening, compromise, and trust, but it also offered the joy of shared creativity. She discovered that people could appreciate her for who she was and still value her contributions. Despite the positive changes, she remained grounded. She remembered the long years of quiet observation, the moments of isolation, and the nights spent practicing alone. These experiences had shaped her character, teaching patience, empathy, and resilience. She knew that recognition could fade and that challenges would continue to arise. But she also knew that her confidence, born from perseverance and authenticity, was something no one could take away. It was a foundation she could build upon for the rest of her life. Her friends, both old and new, began to see her in a different light. Some were inspired by her courage, finding motivation to pursue their own hidden talents. Others were drawn to her authenticity, appreciating the quiet strength that had once gone unnoticed. Conversations became deeper, more meaningful. She shared her experiences, her challenges, and her dreams, and in return, she listened to the stories of others. For the first time, she felt that her world was connected, that her presence had value beyond what she had imagined. The girl's parents noticed the change as well. She was more expressive, more confident, and more open to new experiences. They celebrated her accomplishments quietly but with genuine pride, understanding that her growth was not only about performing on stage, but about discovering her own worth. They supported her in ways they had not known were needed, encouraging her to pursue opportunities and explore her passions further. Home became not just a place of comfort, but a space for nurturing her expanding potential. With each passing day, the girl realized that the experience of being seen had altered her perception of herself and the world. She no longer feared the spotlight. She welcomed it as an opportunity to share, to express, and to connect. She understood that her journey was ongoing, and that every moment offered a chance to learn, grow, and inspire. The night of the showcase had been a turning point, but it was only the beginning of a larger story, one in which she would continue to embrace her talents and her voice. She began to mentor a few students who were shy or hesitant, offering guidance and encouragement. She shared her experience of overcoming fear, practicing diligently and trusting herself. These interactions were rewarding, allowing her to pay forward the lessons she had learned. Helping others gave her a sense of purpose beyond personal achievement, reinforcing the idea that courage and talent were most meaningful when shared. In school events that followed, she participated actively, both as a performer and as a supporter of her peers. She cheered for others, offered constructive feedback, and celebrated accomplishments. Her presence became a source of positivity, her actions reflecting the confidence and empathy she had developed. People began to see her as someone dependable, someone capable, and someone inspiring. The girl who had once been invisible now held a quiet influence, shaping the environment around her in subtle but powerful ways. The girl's story spread beyond her school as well. Local community events invited her to perform, small gatherings requested her music, and people admired her dedication and skill. Recognition came naturally, not forced or boastful, and it allowed her to continue growing without losing the humility and focus that had defined her journey. She realized that talent combined with courage and authenticity was magnetic, drawing opportunities and connections in ways she had never imagined. Through all of this, she remained introspective, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the lonely afternoons, the quiet hours of practice, and the fear that had once seemed insurmountable. She acknowledged the struggles and the persistence required to overcome them. These reflections grounded her, reminding her that growth was ongoing and that challenges would continue to test her resolve. Yet she faced each challenge with the knowledge that she had already accomplished something remarkable, that she had transformed herself from the inside out. The girl's transformation became an example for others, demonstrating the power of self-belief, patience, and hard work. Her story showed that being quiet or overlooked was not a limitation, but an opportunity to cultivate inner strength and unique talents. Those who observed her journey were inspired to find their own voice, to embrace their own abilities, and to step forward despite fear. Her impact extended beyond applause and recognition. It resonated in the hearts of those who witnessed her courage. Even as life returned to its regular rhythm, she continued to grow. Each day offered new chances to explore, create, and connect. The lessons learned from the showcase stayed with her, reinforcing her commitment to authenticity, creativity, and courage. She no longer measured her worth by the attention of others, but by the fulfillment she found in pursuing her passions and expressing her true self. The girl who everyone had ignored had found her place not just in the spotlight, but in the hearts and minds of those around her. Looking forward, she embraced new challenges with optimism and determination. Whether performing for a small group, participating in school projects, or sharing her music with the community, she carried herself with confidence, humility, and grace. She had discovered the power of persistence, the importance of believing in oneself, and the value of patience. Her journey was far from over, but she faced the future with courage, knowing that every step forward was built on the foundation she had carefully laid through years of quiet dedication. And so, the girl who had once been overlooked continued to shine in ways both seen and unseen. She had learned that recognition was fleeting, but the growth, the courage, and the confidence she had gained were enduring. She had inspired others, transformed herself, and discovered that true strength often comes quietly, revealed only when one dares to step forward. Her story, still unfolding, was a testament to the power of persistence, authenticity, and the quiet brilliance that can emerge from even the most unnoticed hearts. Life for the girl had changed in ways she never imagined, yet she continued to move forward with humility and determination. Each day brought new experiences, challenges, and opportunities, and she embraced them with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. The once invisible girl had become someone who was noticed, respected, and appreciated, not because she sought recognition, but because she had remained true to herself and her talents. School life was no longer a place of quiet observation, but a stage for growth. She continued to perform in music events, sometimes alone, sometimes with small groups of students who admired her skill and dedication. Each performance, no matter how small, reinforced her confidence and reminded her of the importance of preparation, persistence, and authenticity. She understood that success was not just about one big moment, but about consistent effort and a willingness to embrace challenges. Her relationships with classmates evolved naturally. Students who had once ignored or overlooked her now approached with genuine interest. Some sought advice, others wanted to collaborate on projects, and a few simply enjoyed her company. She remained kind and approachable, careful to treat everyone with respect regardless of past interactions. This approach deepened her connections and helped her build friendships that were meaningful, not superficial. She realized that respect and admiration are earned through character and consistency, not popularity or fleeting attention. Her family noticed the remarkable changes within her as well. She was more open, communicative, and expressive at home, sharing her thoughts, experiences, and dreams with them. Her parents were proud, but more importantly, they saw the girl they had always known, a thoughtful, creative, and resilient individual, gaining the confidence to shine. Their support, encouragement, and understanding became pillars that strengthened her journey, reminding her that growth is nurtured not only by personal effort, but by the care and belief of those around us. The girl began to take initiative beyond music performances. She participated in school projects, community events, and small competitions, always bringing her unique perspective, creativity, and quiet strength. Her contributions were recognized not only for their quality, but for the dedication and thoughtfulness she put into them. People began to trust her, seek her guidance, and value her input. She realized that leadership and influence did not require loud voices or dominant personalities, but could emerge naturally from reliability, empathy, and authenticity. As her confidence grew, she began to mentor others quietly. Students who struggled with shyness, fear, or self-doubt found comfort and guidance in her presence. She shared her journey, emphasizing that fear was natural but could be overcome with preparation and belief in oneself. She encouraged them to pursue their passions, practice diligently, and embrace opportunities no matter how intimidating. In doing so, she discovered that helping others amplified her own growth, deepened her empathy, and reinforced her understanding of courage and resilience. Her music evolved as well. The girl explored new styles, experimented with lyrics, and composed original pieces that reflected her experiences, observations, and emotions. Each song was a reflection of her journey, a testament to her creativity and determination. She shared these pieces with peers, teachers, and occasionally at local events. People were captivated not only by her technical skill, but by the depth of feeling in her music. She had transformed private practice into public inspiration, showing that dedication, authenticity, and heart could create connections that transcended words. Through all of this, she remained grounded. She remembered the years of quiet observation, the loneliness, and the moments when she had doubted herself. Those experiences had shaped her, teaching patience, empathy, and resilience. They reminded her that success and recognition were not the ultimate goals. Personal growth, the courage to pursue passions, and the ability to touch lives were what mattered most. She approached every opportunity with a sense of gratitude and mindfulness, ensuring that her actions reflected the values she had cultivated over the years. The girl also began to envision her future in new ways. She thought about pursuing music more seriously, exploring creative opportunities, and sharing her talents with a wider audience. Her confidence allowed her to dream boldly, imagining possibilities she had never considered when she felt invisible. She understood that her journey would involve challenges, setbacks, and hard work, but she faced these prospects with optimism and determination, knowing that perseverance and authenticity would guide her path. Her story inspired others in unexpected ways. Students who had once struggled with self-doubt were motivated to take risks, explore hidden talents, and embrace opportunities. Teachers recognized that quiet, diligent students often held remarkable potential, waiting to be discovered. The girl's journey became a subtle reminder that every individual has unique strengths, and that recognition comes not only from popularity or visibility, but from authenticity, dedication, and courage. Outside of school, The girl found joy in sharing her music with the community. Small gatherings, local events, and informal performances became opportunities to connect with people who appreciated her talent and sincerity. She learned to balance visibility with humility, understanding that influence and respect are built over time through consistent effort and integrity. Each interaction reinforced her belief that true success lies not in fleeting attention, but in meaningful impact and personal fulfillment. Despite all the recognition and opportunities, she remained true to herself. She continued to practice privately, write music, and reflect on her journey. Her room remained a sanctuary, filled with instruments, notebooks, and sketches, a place where creativity and self-expression thrived. This balance between public engagement and personal space allowed her to grow sustainably, nurturing both her talents and her inner life. The girl's experiences taught her valuable lessons about resilience, courage, and self-belief. She learned that fear is natural, but it should not define actions. She discovered that quiet strength and persistence can overcome years of invisibility. She realized that authenticity and dedication resonate more deeply than the pursuit of attention or approval. These lessons became guiding principles, shaping not only her achievements but also her interactions, relationships, and approach to life. Her impact continued to ripple through her environment. Students, teachers, and community members admired her not only for her talent, but for her character, empathy, and dedication. She became a quiet leader, someone whose example inspired others to pursue their passions, embrace challenges, and trust themselves. The girl who had once been ignored had grown into someone whose presence mattered, whose voice was heard, and whose story encouraged others to believe in their own potential. As she looked back on her journey, she realized that every moment of quiet preparation, every hour of practice, every fear overcome had contributed to her transformation. The applause, recognition, and opportunities were meaningful, but the real triumph was internal, a deep understanding of her own strength, creativity, and value. She had discovered that the journey to being seen begins with believing in oneself, nurturing talents, and embracing opportunities with courage. The girl's story was a testament to the power of persistence, authenticity, and quiet determination. It showed that those who are overlooked or underestimated are not powerless. They possess hidden strength, creativity, and resilience waiting to be expressed. Her journey demonstrated that visibility and recognition are earned, not through seeking attention but through consistent effort, courage, and sincerity. By the time she graduated from school, she had left a lasting impression on those around her. Teachers spoke of her as an example of dedication and integrity. Students remembered her courage and authenticity. Parents and community members admired the way she had embraced her talents and shared them with others. The girl had transformed from an invisible observer into a source of inspiration, showing that every individual has the power to shape their own destiny through perseverance and self-belief. Looking forward, she approached life with confidence, creativity, and a deep understanding of her own capabilities. She knew that challenges would arise, but she also knew that she had the tools to face them with resilience and grace. Her story was far from complete, but she had discovered the foundation upon which her future could be built. A foundation of courage, authenticity, and unwavering belief in herself. The girl who everyone once ignored had become the star of her own life, and her journey served as a reminder that greatness often emerges quietly, nurtured by patience, dedication, and courage. She had learned to embrace her talents, share her voice, and inspire others, proving that true brilliance shines brightest when it comes from the heart. Her story would continue, a testament to the quiet power within each individual, waiting for the moment to step forward and be seen.